please welcome CEO and Managing Partner Standard International, Amar Lalvani, and founder and CCO of Bunkhouse, Liz Lambert.
Hey, Greg.
Yeah.
You want here?
You can sit in the middle,
Okay.
yeah.
Nice to see you.
So as a journalist, I'm supposed to be critical. But when I'm with you two and talking with you two, sometimes I find it hard because I think there's maybe a handful of hotel brands in this world that are truly delivering what everyone's saying that they're going to deliver. So, Standard Hotels with Amar and Liz with Bunkhouse. And I imagine there's a few people here who aren't sure about Bunkhouse, but Unlisted Collection out of Singapore, Ace Hotel, there's not many, right? So maybe just if you could each take just a minute to talk about your individual brands, and then we'll get into the merger and some of the tech in a bit.
First of all, we don't mind you not being critical, Greg.
Okay.
That's okay. You can continue.
Oh.
I have a company called Bunkhouse that's recently partnered with Standard Hotels out of New York, and we're based in Austin. Mm-hmm. And we began as a small company just in one hotel, the San Jose, and now we have several. We have the St. Cecilia, also in Austin, mm-hmm. El Cosmico in Marfa, which I just came back from. Mm-hmm. We do a big music festival out there this time of year, so if I look a little haggard, it's because my shirt still smells like a campfire, really. But we have the Havana in San Antonio, and now with our partnership with Standard, we're beginning to grow in lots of different ways too.
Yeah, we definitely want to get into some of that. Now, a lot of you were probably at the Standard last night in the beer garden, but Amar, you want to just talk a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, sure. So we started as the Standard Hotels group, and we have 5 hotels, starting with the 2 we have in LA, Hollywood and downtown LA, Miami, and the 2 in New York, the Highline and the Standard East Village. Standard's always been on the forefront of a lot of what you guys talk about in the boutique lifestyle, whatever name you want to call it, movement going back 20 years. It's taken on a new life over the last 3 years or so, where it's becoming a broader hospitality platform. And within that is the Standard Hotel brand, which is growing as well. We're going to be opening up our first property in London, going across the pond, beginning of 2018, which is going to be a fantastic hotel. We then have a few more coming in the Standard brand. We then partnered with Liz. I can still see Marfa on my boots. But we partnered with Liz.
He was there too, so if he's haggard, it's the same thing.
Because we were just personally and became a fan of what Liz does. And she does, and her company does, the same things we do in terms of culture, hospitality, music, food, cares about the same principles that we care about, but in a very different voice. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but we partnered with Bunkhouse to do that. And most recently, we launched an app, which was the sponsor of last night's event, called One Night. So we're now also in the distribution business. So I think we're probably the first hotel group to jump that fence and get into the distribution business. We could talk a little bit about that too.
Okay. So, the theme of this talk is how do you craft a lifestyle brand in the sharing economy? When we've talked before, you've said because you have such a unique identity or such a unique vision, it's made you sort of immune to some of the disruptions as compared to some other brands. Do you want to just expound on that a little bit?
Well, I think we can both answer that a little bit. I mean, I think when you talk about Airbnb being the biggest disruptor, I think, to our business, I think that it's actually been a good shot in the arm in lots of ways. I've always thought of the hotel business as changing at such a glacial pace and adapting at such a glacial pace. And I think those kinds of disruptions really make us look at what we're doing, along with the technology that's starting to happen at a rapid pace.
Yeah, I think certainly no one's immune to it. It's an amazing product. It's an amazing way of traveling. I'm a big fan personally. It's 20% of the room supply in New York now is Airbnb, so no one's immune to it. But what I do think about it is it makes what we do that much different, because there are things that we do collectively and happen to be very good at that just isn't what Airbnb does or can do. And the big part of that is bringing people together and bringing the community together. Last night, we showed the debates at our hotels, and it was swamped, and people wanted to hang out, they wanted to talk, they wanted to debate each other, they wanted to have that kind of, you just can't do that at Airbnb, it's not how it works. So
unless there's lots of them.
Unless it doesn't work like that. So they basically have a distributed model. We have a model that brings people together. And I think about it like, the internet happened, and people thought cities were dead because you could telecommute from anywhere. You know what happened? Cities became stronger. So I think that's an analogy to what we do versus what they do.
I also think the other thing that we can do at Standard and Bunkhouse is that we are really about building community, listening to the community, digging into the places we're in. And I think that with a hotel, you can actually curate an experience. At Airbnb, Airbnb can't control what every one of their hosts does or what happens at every one of the houses. We can't control all of that, but we certainly can influence it through either, through our staff, through our places, through our standards, through the stories we're telling, the music we're playing, the incense in the courtyard. We can create an entire curated experience.
If you go to we just came back from Liz's music festival in Marfa that brings people together and brings a community together. That's just so far from what they actually can do that draws it completely.
So it's always the coolest thing when you talk with people that are, at the top of their game or leading an industry, and you ask them why they're successful, and they never really seem to capture, because I think you guys are so in it. But just to talk about creativity, what they're talking about at festivals in Marfa, Texas, West Texas, which is 8 hours from nowhere, or it's really in the middle.
There's a few.
There's a few places, right? It's a one stoplight town kind of thing, and it's El Cosmico, which is a whole compound of retro 1960s, 70s trailers, yurts, tents, teepees, and you just had the Trans-Pecos music.
The Trans-Pecos Festival of Love and Music.
So there's nothing like that else. That's sort of where I see your the wellspring of this brand. If I had to nail it, it would be Trans-Pecos Festival in Marfa at El Cosmico. And now when you go to, say, Austin, during South by Southwest, you're ground central. That's, everyone wants to stay at San Jose, St. Cecilia. San Jose is like this sort of brutalist concrete cacti with old blues posters in the lobby.
I prefer to think of it as Zen, not necessarily brutalist. But
well, no, but there's
really
absolutely nothing like the St. Cecilia is the exact opposite. I don't even know how to describe St. Cecilia. But my question, which is coming, is it's very expensive to build a brand this way. Everything's a one-off. Everything's, every little detail you look after, it's totally integrated with the social fabric of the community. And there's so many, it's all this nuance, a lot of nuance. How can you build a brand that way?
Well, I'm painfully aware of how hard it is to be scalable that way, but that's where our partnership with Standard comes in. But also, I think part of what makes our brand so special is the people that we invest in, not just the guests, but the people that we hire and trust with being such a part of that guest experience. It's about creativity, but creativity with the people that we're hiring, collaboration with those people. There's a little bit of chaos, but there's a whole lot of we have tons of standards because we care about all kinds of details, but we also are willing to listen to the people that work for us, to the people in the community, to the feedback from guests. And so it's not so rigid that I think it becomes a problem when you have a huge brand.
Okay.
But
if you want to talk a little bit about the, sort of the value of scarcity, and then we'll definitely get into the tech.
So I think from a business standpoint, there's different ways to create value. One way is by rapid footprint expansion, and we've done that before. I have personally, and that's one thing is to go into cities, open up new hotels, and keep building that, and the pipelines that the public hotels companies talk about. That's certainly a way to build value. The other way to build value is scarcity value, which is have something that's really scarce. And scarce things are usually hard to do, whether it's a piece of art or whether it's a fabulous hotel. Those things become valuable, not because of how fast they grow, how replicable they are, but how scarce they are and how much people love them. So we have a little bit of a combination, but we're very comfortable that we don't have to be everywhere for us to be valuable. The other thing I would say is that we've become sort of an incubator of ideas that then can be pushed out into the world in different ways. One Night, which we'll talk about, was an idea that we came up with as One Night Standard. We found a way on a digital platform to take last-minute inventory after 3 p.m. only and sell it through our platform in a fun, spontaneous way. We were super excited to find out 70% of the guests that stayed using that were local. So we expanded the pie. We weren't just stealing market share. So what did we do? We said, wow, that really worked. Why don't we take that out into the world in the form of One Night and do that for our colleagues who have their own hotels? So If you have something creative and scarce, there are multiple ways to leverage it without the traditional, we need to grow our footprint as fast as possible.
So when did One Night Standard, the app, which is the, which you just described, when did that launch?
It's roughly a year ago.
Oh, that just really
Yeah.
recent. And then now One Night, where, how many other hotels are you working with?
We have about 25 hotels. We just launched last week in New York and LA. We're soon to launch in Austin, Miami, San Francisco, Vegas, and Chicago. And the principle behind it was, we looked at, you guys, the Skift people love this, but we looked at all the data, and after 3 p.m., from noon to 3 p.m., there were a lot of real bookings. After 3 p.m., it was really obsolete inventory. So we said, what if we had an only after 3 p.m. application? And that's what One Night Standard was. And it was so successful, we said, let's go take it to the world. And one of the things that we saw is that we do all this work. You said how hard it is to do. We do so much work to make our hotels. And then all of that gets reduced to a thumbnail picture and a big price. And that's frustrating.
On
OTA,
regular
on a regular
OTAs,
thing.
yeah.
So we said, and they do a fabulous job of what they do, but we said, what if we could create an app that is good for the hotels and that it's obsolete inventory, but also celebrates the experiences of the hotels? So within the app, we have this 24-hour cool experience clock, because we realize we don't go to hotels for the size of the room or necessarily the thread count of the sheets, but it's a coffee shop around the corner. It's the martini that the person makes downstairs. It's the music that's playing at the Continental Club across from the San Jose. So that's what we've put in this app, which is a very different way of thinking about distribution.
He's thinking about a total experience.
So when do you get an app? Like,
I don't know.
coming. We're
Mark,
coming
when
to
do I
Austin.
get it? No, the One Night is coming to Austin.
okay. Then there's also Standard Time.
Yeah, standard. So
I love Standard Time.
Standard Hotels has had a history going back 20 years, and as you know, the logo is upside down because we think about everything in the hospitality business different. In effect, turning it on its head. Last year, we started an exercise. We just asked the question, why are check-in times what they are? Why do you have to check in at 3 or 4 and check out at noon? That's not how we live. That's not how this group lives. And we know that as personally. If you come into Red Eye from LA to New York and your room's not ready, you have a meeting coming up and you just want to take a shower, that's one of the most frustrating experiences. The only more frustrating experience is when they tell you it might be ready and then it's not ready. So we said, what if we let you choose the check-in and check-out times? So we created something called Standard Time.
Housekeeping loves you for
So
this.
what happens in the hotel business is usually you have an idea and the operator of the hotel says you can't do it. Why? Because we don't do it that way, because it's never been done that way.
Right.
And so this has been happening for I don't know how many hundreds of years, and we just said, why? And we looked at it. You know what? People check out at 7 a.m. They check out at 8 a.m. There's a room there to be cleaned, and there are people that want to use it. Why don't you change your housekeeping schedule to be on demand using data and get people in the room that want to stay there? So, and all we did is had to bust through the typical hotel mentality and do something like that. And so the response has been phenomenal.
What have been some of the hiccups with either platform?
Well, on One Night Standard, the biggest hiccup was it was too quick. People said go, and they didn't realize the room was ready. So we had to add something that says, are you sure? So that was one. Getting people to really realize that they already have a new way of living. They already want stuff on demand. We have Uber, that's on demand, but they never booked hotel rooms that way. When they start doing it, they say, wow, my whole life is effectively on demand. So there's a thought process that'll change. We think with One Night, and we live this community, we think with One Night, if you had enough inventory, you could take a risk on your flight. And we promise you those hotels are awesome. We love those hotels, and we're promising you the best price.
It's about the curation of the hotels, too. The difference, if you look at any of the other OTAs, there's going to be whatever hotels are on the OTAs. And you've got it's part of trusting our curation of
We've already had hotels
experience.
reach out to us and say, can we get on that because of the neighbor? It's like a retailer. You like the neighbor that you're next to. You like the store that you're next to. We're keeping it really tight. And because it's not our core business, we don't need to expand it. In the same way I think about scarcity value, we just want to have a tight group of fantastic hotels.
Okay, but let's talk a little bit about growth, because this is such an interesting synergy. Standard is, global, gateway, big buzz. You've got, John Legend playing up in the Boom Boom Room or somewhere like that. You can only expand so many places in the US, maybe San Francisco, what have you. So you buy 51% stake in Liz's company, and now you've got another brand you can do all kinds of cool things with in, any second-tier city in the US. But now how are you going to keep that energy and that creativity? It just seems once you start doing that, it just starts getting diluted. Like, how do you maintain that?
Why so? I understand, because there's more of us, there's more properties.
there's more of you, and now
Think about it like this. Think how many interesting cities there are for us to go to in the States that we haven't been to yet. I mean, think of Nashville or New Orleans or Atlanta, or there's so many great cities that have some personality and grit and things to dig into. You know, one thing that we've talked a lot about is starting a limited service brand, a bunkhouse brand. So there would be that would be an interesting thing of some standardization, but.
a bunkhouse brand.
Right.
Do you want to announce that right now?
Not yet.
Well, not yet.
But I think to also...
Nobody will know.
Also to answer your question, so standard, as you talked about, resonates in certain places. And I think we are humble enough to know where we don't resonate as well. So standard should go to San Francisco, it'll go to London, it should go to Milan and Paris and Tokyo and all the places you can imagine. But a standard in Nashville, we wouldn't do the city justice. And that would feel like a round peg, square hole.
Yeah.
You know, Louisville, they're really, and Liz's voice resonates so well there, why would we not partner and do that? And I think the other point is how to keep the creativity. When we did this was all about empowering Bunkhouse. So whatever they already did well, keep doing it. Whatever we can help you with, we'll help you with.
So when do we see the next bunkhouse? Where's it going to be?
In Todos Santos in Mexico in late December, early January. Crunch time. Todos Santos is close to Cabo. You can fly straight from, maybe not straight from New York, but
That's your
Cabo.
partnership with Chip Conley from Airbnb?
Well, Chip is the one that got me into this, and you can ask him about that tomorrow.
That'll be another story.
I love Chip very much.
What comes after Baja?
After Baja, there's so much coming up.
Something else in Austin, probably.
Yeah, we're working, something else in Austin's in the works.
Maybe Venice Beach.
Yeah, Venice Beach, we've got a few other things.
Very cool. All right, that's time. So thank you both.
Thanks so much, Greg. It's been a pleasure.